Hello and welcome to IndiTalk. This is a program on which we discuss controversial issues of national importance. Today's subject is Kashmir. Now I know it's an old subject. It's been the focus of debate ever since I myself was a youngster. But it has cropped up again because of a speech made by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in which he said that we could have held on to all of Kashmir had Sardar Patel been our Prime Minister. Now, apart from the politics of this, I'm not going to get into whether Patel would have been more successful in hanging on to Kashmir, even though it is true that Patel was our Home Minister and he went by whatever decisions that Prime Minister Nehru took, and he backed him no matter what their private differences would be. But I don't think that we can reduce Kashmir to a sort of a lowest common political denominator in which you can say that either we have Kashmir or we don't have Kashmir or we have Greater Kashmir, because we lose the historical context in which this Kashmir debate continues to boil in India. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is that, and most people don't think about this because they think of Kashmir emotionally because of the terrible bloodshed that has gone into it, the incredible price that India has paid in terms of keeping its presence in Kashmir and trying to win the Kashmiri people over. But actually, the fact is that the people of Kashmir embraced India first, well before Pakistan had any claim to them. In fact, they spurned Pakistan. They embraced India. So why is it that we keep talking about losing Kashmir when the Kashmiri people actually embraced us first and then perhaps moved away from us? There are historical reasons, I think, which we all ought to understand. We keep talking about this Article 370 as if it is some separatist article that comes out of a Kashmiri conspiracy or a Pakistani Kashmiri conspiracy in which Kashmir is given some special status outside the constitution. Actually, Article 370 is our very own article. It is an article of the Indian constitution framed by the makers of our constitution, our founding fathers. And Article 370 is also predicated on Article 2 of the Constitution. Now, Article 2 of the Constitution, I have a copy of it here. It's a very simple thing. It says that the states and territories of India shall comprise A, B, and C, and Parliament may, by law, admit into the Union or establish new states on terms and conditions as it sees fit. Now, what does this mean? This means that in 1947, before India was one country, it was 561 independent states. Sometimes these states were constantly at war with each other. Some were Muslim principalities and the majority were Hindu principalities, but with a mixture of both Hindus and Muslims in both of them. Now, when India became independent, after the Independence Act, Pakistan and India were created, the states were to sign an instrument of accession, which meant that they would either accede to India or to Pakistan or to remain independent. While most states signed the instrument of accession to India, Kashmir decided basically to stay independent. Because the Maharaja of Kashmir, as the history books will tell you, basically was leaning towards Pakistan or to independence. And the Maharaja of Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, was a Hindu. Now, Pakistan thought that it could grab Kashmir by force. And in October 1947, its troops, disguised as invaders and as tribals, came in and invaded Kashmir and thought that the Kashmiri people, because of their religion, would naturally gravitate towards Kashmir. It didn't happen. In fact, thousands and thousands of Muslims were actually killed resisting the Pakistani invaders. And in fact, and the Maharajas fled, and Sheikh Abdullah, the Lion of Kashmir, who was the leader of the Kashmiri movement, who was then in jail, was freed, and he basically led the resistance against the Pakistani invaders, and he and the Maharaja both asked India to help them. India couldn't help them because Kashmir was not a part of India at that time. So Mountbatten, who was then the Viceroy of India, basically reached an agreement with the Maharaja saying that if you sign the instrument of accession, I can help you, because otherwise I cannot enter what is a foreign territory. The instrument of accession was signed. Kashmir acceded to India, surrendering defense, currency, foreign policy. And the Indian troops came and repelled the invader. Now, they did not go beyond a certain line because both Pakistan and India had actually exhausted their military strength. They had very little money or arms and ammunition to fight each other. And India actually went to the UN and asked for a ceasefire. The ceasefire had various terms to it, on which the line of control was established. And it was also said that Pakistan would first have to withdraw its troops. And after Pakistan withdraws its troops, because Pakistan virtually was called the invader, after Pakistan withdraws its troops, Indian troops would continue in a peacekeeping fashion in Kashmir, along with UN observers. And later on, the Kashmiris would get self-determination through a plebiscite and determine their own future. Of course, this did not happen simply because Pakistan did not withdraw its troops. And later on, not only did Pakistan not withdraw its troops, but also occupied Baltistan and surrendered certain parts of the original Kashmir, which was the Aksai Chin part, to China. So that question of plebiscite does not really exist now. So what does exist and what does bind India to Kashmir is Article 370. Very quickly, what is Article 370? It's part of our constitution. Why was it promulgated? Very simple. Because under Article 2 of the constitution, under which Kashmir acceded to us under terms as determined by the constitution, Kashmir was allowed to have its own sort of sovereign republic. While certain parts of its autonomy were given to India, it was allowed to have its own constituent assembly to form its own constitution. So the Kashmir Constituent Assembly was formed and basically lasted until 1955 or thereabouts. The Indian Constituent Assembly, which gave India its constitution after the states had become part of India, finished its deliberations in 1950-51, and we got our constitution then. But then, what could we do about Kashmir? Because Kashmir, after all, had been internationalized. It was an international phenomenon. There were UN security resolutions, which we all know, which are there on paper. So we formed Article 370 as a window through which Indian laws would continue to apply to Kashmir. It is the international recognition of Kashmir as a part of India through which Indian laws apply to Kashmir. And Article 370 can only be revoked, not only by the President, not only even by the President of India or by our Parliament. It can only be revoked by the Kashmir Constituent Assembly. But the Kashmir Constituent Assembly does not exist anymore. It was dissolved in 1955 after approving of Article 370 and accession, and only the Kashmir Constituent Assembly, which does not exist, can negate Article 370. Suppose by some way we could revive this and even abolish Article 370. And I've asked a lot of my friends in the BJP who used to take this and advocate this position on Article 370, that suppose we were to establish it, what would happen? Actually, what would happen was we would internationalize this situation again. Kashmir would once again become an international problem, and you would revert to the instrument of accession through which you would give Kashmiris the right basically to decide whether to join India, Pakistan, or to remain independent. Now, we obviously don't want that to happen because too much water and too much blood, and Indian blood, and also Kashmiri blood, has flown under the bridge. Therefore, I think it is absolutely necessary that when we talk about this, we think about this with an extremely cool head, because all we'll be doing if we abolish Article 370 is playing into the hands of Pakistan, because I don't think Pakistan had any legitimacy whatever in the Kashmir dispute, because Pakistan, after all, was the invader. It was declared the invader by the UN, and it was asked to withdraw its troops before any normalcy could return to Pakistan. But Pakistan has not done that. And I want to end this with one interesting fact. Stone pelting, which we all know about, the Kashmiri stone pelters, who pelt Indian troops with stones. Well, it didn't start 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. Do you know when the first instance of Kashmiri stone pelting took place? It took place in 1944. This is when Jinnah, who had formed the Muslim League in India, went to Baramulla and tried to make a speech there, trying to ask the Kashmiri political parties to join the Muslim League, which believed in the two-nation theory. Actually, the Kashmiris, and especially the National Conference founded by Sheikh Farooq Abdullah's father, Sheikh Abdullah, who did not believe in it, he and his party men actually pelted Jinnah with stones, and they made a garland of shoes, juto ka har as they call it, to put around Jinnah's neck, because they said, we do not believe in your kind of anti-Hindu communalism. I mean, this basically is a very interesting story of Kashmir that not many people know about. So we really have to wonder, that what is the greatest challenge between us? We have to search once again for the Kashmiri embrace, and getting back that Kashmiri embrace, as Modi himself said, not gali and goli, but an embrace. Getting back that embrace is the greatest challenge for Indian leadership. That's all for today on IndiTalk. We'll be back again with more controversial issues. This is Indrajit Badwar. Good day.